think Tevez going to Juventus, what a coup that was for me. I mean,
on a head-to-head battle, Atletico Madrid can do more damage to Barcelona than the other way around.
Either he's really blind or he's fixing the match. I can't see it any other way.
I'm trying to get Sir Bob on my side here by saying City will win the Premier League.
It is an upset. You would expect Man United to go and win there.
Over $1 billion was paid in transfer fees between the clubs in Europe.
It's football. It's damn football. Like Ferguson said, football. Bloody marvellous.
Yeah, well, the celebration was, I can't believe I just scored against Mexico. At one point, Parma, I think it's only like 224 players under contract. Hey, they're going to throw me out of here, fellas. You're going to get me arrested on your show.
If you're a serious talent, you're going back and you're playing for Santos. You're going back to play for, like in Argentina, for River Plate or Boca Juniors, or you're going to Europe.
He looked like the Ryan Giggs of old. He was more creative than any player on the pitch. He made Mata look stupid. He made Rooney look silly.
Now, the Premier League is the most exciting league out there. I think it's probably the best marketed league without a question.
When you look at the draw for the Champions League, you kind of say, well, all the pieces kind of fell into place for everybody except City.
I am your host, Joe Usello. Sir Bob, Mike Orr. My co-host, Rob Rojas. My trusted co-host, Ben the Machine. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 94 of Low Limit Football on this October 19th, 2015. I am your host, Joe Usello, and glad to be back after a great week of football. Got a chance to sit on the couch a little bit and watch football from pretty much everywhere around the world. A little bit of England, a little bit of Italy. We had the Derby d'Italia this weekend. Got to see a little Bundesliga this week, a little Ligue 1 in action. Saw some great football overall, and we're leading right up into some big matches even this week as well. It seemed like last week was Italy's week to have the top teams squaring off against each other. This week, we're going to go to Manchester and see the Reds and the Blues duke it out on Sunday morning. But great to be back after a great week of football. We are one co-host down tonight, as Senor Rojas is he's working for the man, like we like to say to him. So we are not solo, though, because our good friend from the Great White North is back after Thanksgiving. Mike, what's going on?
Not too much, Joe. How you doing tonight?
Good. Excited to have back. This is the first time you and I have ever done the show by ourselves.
I think so, yeah.
So hopefully we don't mess it up, you and I, right?
Yeah, I'll try not to steal all the spotlight from you.
Fair enough. No, but we're going to have a great show tonight. In about 15 minutes, or actually in about 10 minutes, we've got Jonathan Johnson from BeIN Sport coming on. Rob pointed out, he is our most attended guest on this show. This will be his 5th appearance on the show, which is fantastic, and we've been very blessed to have him on. We're going to talk a little Ligue 1. We've had a couple things break this evening, some transfer rumor news that happened today. We got PSG flying high so far in the season, so it's a good time to talk to him. Also, the Euros are winding down in terms of their qualification. Everyone's getting geared up to head to Paris and to France and kick off that tournament in the summer as well. So I'm sure he'll have plenty to say about all of that. But otherwise a good spot. Now, Mike, I have to ask you, do we have a trivia question tonight?
I do.
Did you make it easy for me?
I did.
Liar.
It's easy.
All right. Well, let's jump into it. What do you got for me?
Which player has made the most Champions League appearances without having won the competition?
Which players made the most CL appearances? Okay. Without winning. Just Champions League.
Yep. Most Champions League appearances without having won the competition.
I think I have it.
All right.
I think I have it. Because I think this guy's been in it pretty much every year, and I don't think he won it when he played on Milan. So I think... but he might have won it with Barcelona. I'm going to stick with it for now, and then we'll figure it out after. My gut told me I was right, and then my gut suddenly told me I was wrong. So I see Zach is in the chat room so far tonight. So Zach, welcome aboard. Thanks for coming by. Glad to see you in there. I don't know if Luca and Liam have shown up yet, but they're usually in the house as well. So let's head over to our opening thoughts topic, because I know we've got about 10 minutes before Jonathan comes on, and I feel like we're going to need at least all 10 minutes to talk about this one. And the genesis of tonight's topic was really a private message you had sent to me and Rob, that at first I didn't want to stick the stick in the lion's cage. And then I'm like, you know what? Yeah, because I think sometimes when I see a message from you in the chat, sometimes it feels like it's over the top, like it's a superlative. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw this one, and I'm like, I think you're giving it way too much credit. And the comment was that, I'm going to paraphrase it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't go back and look at the actual text, but you basically said that Sebastian Giovinco, and this is after he scored that golazo, which will probably be goal of the year, where he just absolutely walked through three defenders after getting off a plane 3 hours earlier after playing in the European qualifier in Italy.
And better than any goal David Beckham ever scored in MLS, right?
Maybe. I didn't go back and look at all of David Beckham's goals. But basically, there's a guy on Tuesday, plays in the Euro qualifier against Norway in Italy, gets on a private plane, flies to Toronto, gets off the plane at about 4, basically texts his coach, Greg Vandy, that I'm playing tonight, coach. And
was actually texting him as soon as he got off the field from the Italy game.
Okay. So, but basically sending him, hey, I'm playing. He gets to the field, and he's like, I'm playing, right? And he goes, no, we put you on the bench. He goes, yeah, but I'm going to get in the second half. And then gets in, at about the 60th minute, I think, right, Mike? Somewhere
right around there, yeah.
And then literally just proceeds to walk through the New York Red Bull, who are, by the way, the best team in MLS right now, and scored that absolute golazo to make it 2-0 in that match. And it turned out to be the game-winning goal. So it was a very exciting time. It was also a very exciting night in Toronto sports, because it was the same night that the Blue Jays beat the Texas Rangers with that Miguel Bautista home run. So you had Toronto FC...
Actually came on in the 71st minute, Joe. I just looked it up. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So you have Toronto FC qualifying for the playoffs for the first time in their history. You've got what amounted to a walk-off home run for the Toronto Blue Jays when they were dead and buried. It was an incredible night in Toronto sports, and you proceeded to say that, and again I'm paraphrasing, that Sebastian Giovinco is the greatest thing to ever happen to MLS. Right?
Yeah, something very close to that. That's the context, yeah.
So I said, I don't think so. I think you're wrong. And then that started a whole discussion, which we even had people weighing in on it. And I don't know how well versed Jonathan is in MLS. This might be a nice question to ask him. But
especially because we don't need it. Our point is the impact on MLS. So Jonathan's opinion would weigh more than ours, considering he's outside of North America. So let's hear what he thinks about. When Beckham come, was there more noise in Europe about MLS, or is Giovinco and playing well with the Italy national team more of news in Europe?
Right. So
he's actually a good person, as long as, like you said, he follows it at least a little bit.
Yeah. So what I want to do is I want to give the floor to you to kind of make your argument. I argued against you that it was David Beckham. But
your argument has to be strictly just based on marketing.
I thought it was overall, because when Beckham came from,
but he wasn't even the best player in the MLS when he played.
No,
whereas that can be made for Giovinco.
I guess I could see that. If you're putting Landon Donovan ahead of him, and that's fine. I'm not arguing against that. You know what I mean? I'm not arguing against you in that regard, but I just think that
maybe Robbie Keane was there too. No,
Robbie Keane was there.
Yeah, so I'm putting him ahead of David Beckham on playing on the field in the MLS too.
And and the thing is that David Beckham goes to the LA Galaxy, and again, I didn't want to take the floor from you first, but
No, that's okay. That's a better way to do it anyway.
Fair enough. David
I don't
Beckham.
have point by point.
David Beckham did make the players around him better. I mean, that's just the nature of his position. Giovinco's even done that to an extent. Don't get me wrong. But
to an extent, he's got a team that has never been into the playoffs in 9 years. Where would Toronto be without Giovinco this year? Would they be in the playoffs?
They would be dead in the water.
Would you have picked them to win the MLS title if Giovinco wasn't here?
No, and I'm still sticking to that, by the way.
Okay, that's fine.
But no, I would not have picked them. But you certainly expected guys like Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore. Not so much Bradley. Bradley, I think, has had an okay season. But Josie Altidore, from what you would expect out of him, has had an absolute stinker. And the only reason at this point that Toronto has gotten over that hump is because of Giovinco. You remember, Toronto was close last year, too, I thought, if I remember correctly. They kind of...
they lost, 7 of their last 9, yeah, so by the end of it, they weren't very close.
They faded at the end is what happened. That was what I was going to say. But so my point, though, was that, the way the question was and the way the comment was made, for me, Beckham was a much bigger picture kind of thing, where David Beckham, like you said, was he the best player on the field? No, he wasn't. But certainly when you take the entire scheme of things and you look at the whole big picture, marketing-wise, there's no second place.
But was this out? But do you actually think this took place outside of North America, or we are in our own bubble, where of course he exploded inside our bubble? I don't think anything happened in Europe with Beckham coming.
Well,
as far as there was no TV contract, which there certainly is now on Sky Sports.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a function of Sebastian Giovinco.
Maybe not.
No, and I think that is a function of David Beckham.
Well, that's 15 years later, so I don't know about that.
15 years later that he came over, but only about, 3 or 4 years that he's been gone?
I think it's 5 or 6 now, isn't it?
He went to PSG. I'd have to look. I didn't look it up.
Right.
But also when we talk about the other players.
Well, you would think if David Beckham had this great impact coming over, they would have wanted the Sky Sports contract right then, not when he's gone.
Right. No, I agree with you there, but I think David Beckham starts to bring the other players in, the Thierry Henrys and those sorts, to where they start to gain more interest.
So his biggest impact was bringing a bunch of old age players, and not being facetious, but bringing a bunch of players that were pretty much past their European prime to the MLS. Because we didn't draw any young players that I can think of.
Like Chad is saying in the chat that the money brings them in, but to Chad, the one thing I would say to Chad is not only is it the money brings them in because the players are coming, so then they get the TV contracts. Because let's be honest. Who would you want to see? Let's talk about a 32-year-old Lionel Messi. A 32-year-old Lionel Messi comes into MLS. I mean, think of the money that follows him here. And again, you're talking to a guy who, in my opinion, if you want to make the product better on the field, I want to see more Sebastian Giovincos. I don't want to see David Beckham. Okay, I don't want to see Thierry Henry. Because, like you said...
Right, and then that's further to my point that I was having with you about long-term. We don't know what interest this is going to bring from Giovinco as far as younger players coming over. Or I also made the fact that some European scouts and stuff might actually come over to see Giovinco because there is interest in him in Europe. That's been reported by Toronto FC. And some other players might get recognized through this, whereas I don't think any scouts came over to scout Beckham.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna give you one player right off the bat, Giovanni Dos Santos. Okay, Gio comes over here. He could have easily gone to Mexico. I mean, he's Gio Dos Santos, for God's sakes, And he was playing at Villarreal at a very high level. He's starting for a La Liga side that is knocking on European spots, on their front door. Okay, so it's not like he came from some Sassuolo or Eibar or somebody like that was a much lower down on the food chain table team. Even to that extent, Josie Altidore comes from Sunderland.
So who are we giving this credit to? For Giovinco coming over and other people looking at it, or are you saying this is Beckham?
I think this is more Beckham. I don't want to put this directly.
I think this is more Giovinco and other players coming. Okay, yeah, he can do it. We can come over too.
Yeah, the only thing
the Beckham effect, I believe, is finished for players coming over. He's been a long time gone.
I would agree with you only if Gio came next year. Coming in the middle of the season, I don't think it's a Giovinco thing. If Gio Dos Santos comes at the beginning of next season, I think it's a much better argument. But coming at this point is, for me, he's not here as, he's not here because he sees Giovinco's success. He's here because he's seen other players succeed, but he also, and Gio's probably a little bit of a lousy,
But let's be real here. He's here for the money.
So they all are. They all are. Not just Giovinco.
But you can make a case that Giovinco's not just here for the money. It's transatlantic flights. These flights aren't really that difficult, but no one else makes the effort to come back from an international weekend. Play the same day, never mind.
Yeah, but
that's more than money.
That doesn't. That doesn't speak to the money, and that speaks to the person. And I think I don't think that's Gio's love for the league. I think that's Gio's love for the game.
No, I think it's his love for Toronto and the city.
Well, I mean,
he's embraced this city big time.
Yeah, but I think, I would agree with you on that point. But that also speaks to the person, because okay, let me ask you this: if he went to Dallas, if he went to FC Dallas and played there and was ripping it up at FC Dallas like he is now, which we would all expect. Does he fall in love with Dallas like he's fallen in love with Toronto?
No, but I don't think there is ever a chance. I know what you're saying, but there's ever a chance that he goes to FC. I think the only team he comes to in all of MLS is Toronto, and that was because of Bezpachenko going there and actually hanging out with the guy for nearly a week.
I agree. And he fell in love with the city, and he comes over here. And granted, Toronto has a huge Italian population.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah, it's enormous.
Yeah.
So
Little Italy's got well over 400,000 people in that area.
I mean, I don't want to say he quote unquote feels at home, but he feels a little more welcome. Also, Gio himself, Sebi Giovinco has come out and said that he likes the fact that he can walk down the street in Toronto with his family, and he's not feeling like he's mobbed like he was in Italy.
Right, people just come up to him, hey, how you doing? And no, great to see you, and that's about it. Not every national team problem needs to be answered by him while he's going out with his family on a Sunday.
Exactly. Now, for me, and between you and I think they have both done things for this league, and I want to.
But in fairness, my point was who is, if you remember, mine was more about who's going to be the longer term impact on the league.
Right, and
short term, I can agree with it because nobody can match the marketing power that Beckham brought.
Sure.
It's Beckham. He is a brand on his own.
Rob took this question and he posted it on the MLS discussion group in Facebook, and got plenty of responses. I want to read a couple of them just real quick before we get to Jonathan. This guy, Cody Byers, says, if we're not talking about on-field production, then it has to be Beckham. And if we are talking on the field, then it becomes a much harder question. Currently, Giovinco is running the show over the past 4 years. Keane, before him, it was never one player for long. Donovan obviously had a huge impact, but it was over the course of the career. Then you have the players like Valderrama from earlier years that really set the tone for star players, which he brings up a great point too. Luis Flores says Giovinco is a class player. It's like having Rooney here. Giovinco has been unstoppable. Not even the great Pirlo. Steven Gerrard have impacted the MLS. Therefore, from my perspective, he has impacted the MLS. So Luis Flores sides with Giovinco, and I would side Giovinco over Pirlo and over Steven Gerrard. And let's be honest. We talk about Thierry Henry. We talk about the aged player. Gio's not that, but Steven Gerrard is. Andrea Pirlo definitely is.
And I would say about Valderrama, unless you were a soccer fan, his impact outside of that was no new players knew everybody knew who David Beckham was, whether you knew soccer or not.
It was Halloween costumes is what it came down to.
Right.
Patrick Chavez says that
nice hair.
Yeah, exactly. Thierry Henry had to be in the discussion. He further legitimized MLS to players overseas and was incredibly dominant on the field. However, if we are facing the question exactly as stated, nobody is allowed to say anybody other than David Beckham. It's not an opinion, it's a fact. Beckham had the biggest impact on MLS. And then other guys started jumping in. Lothar Matthäus, blah, blah, blah. Hat-trick Rick, got to mention.
And Kirsten Hennig responded.
Yes, and I was hoping you would bring that up. Go ahead.
And his answer was Seba, Seba, Seba.
Yeah. And then he said,
He changes the game single-handedly. Beckham perhaps moved the marketing dial, but Seba moves the play dial.
Right. So I guess, and when he answered it that way, and then I saw a couple of these other responses, I realized that you can this answer or this question, you have different ways of answering it depending on how you're looking at the question.
Except I think me and you had the same idea in mind when you read it. I think you read it the way what I had in mind.
Yes.
Because I do agree, Beckham in the short term, who's going to match? Maybe when Cristiano Ronaldo, if he comes over, can match that in terms of people just knowing who he is. But in terms of long term and growing this league and perhaps raising eyebrows for other players, scouts that might actually come over and some players get a chance in Europe, I think it's going to be Giovinco.
Yeah, and again, that's going to be a long-term...
Assuming Giovinco's in the league long enough, by the way.
Of course, because he could end up back in Italy or back over in Europe, and then when you look at it, it'll be
Although it was apparently brought up, according to the Toronto Sun, in a board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they said the president of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment said he was not going to entertain any offers.
Right. So joining us now in Low Limit Football for we've counted is the fifth time, and glad to have him back, is Jonathan Johnson from BeIN Sport. Jonathan, great to have you back on the show. I want to open the questioning quickly with something that I saw break over my feed just about an hour ago, and that was the word from Gazzetta dello Sport that Ezekiel Lavezzi will be transferring to Barcelona at the end of the season in the summer window on a free transfer. Have you heard anything about that, and what are your thoughts on that transfer?
Yeah, there have been a couple of different rumours that have surfaced surrounding Lavezzi and a potential move to Barcelona. One of them is that he'd actually move in January for a minimal fee of around €4 million, and he'd sign a 3-year contract, I think. And then the other is that he'd join Barcelona at the end of the season and sign a 3-year contract as well. I have to be honest, I don't see the logic in the transfer from a Barcelona point of view. I think that if there is money to be made on Lavezzi now for PSG, then I think selling him makes sense, even if it is just for a small fee like €4 million. Lavezzi is now at best an impact substitute at PSG. We've seen him over the years really struggle to prove that he can be prolific enough to justify a starting role in PSG's team. And I have to say that I definitely wouldn't put him among PSG's wisest signings of the QSI era. Lovable character on and off the pitch. Smile is never far away with Lavezzi. There's plenty of pranks and plenty of jokes that he's played over the years that have amused everybody. But in terms of what he could offer Barcelona, I don't really see it. I think that if he's going there, he'd be going there to be a squad option, and he'd probably sink lower in the pecking order than he already is at PSG right now.
Okay. Now, keeping PSG in mind, or staying with PSG, obviously they've got the big match this week with Real Madrid. I believe it's tomorrow, if I remember correctly. How do you see this particular matchup shaping up with these two group leaders facing off against each other?
Well, I have to admit, it's a bit disappointing going into the game, considering that there's so many injuries, particularly on the Madrid side of things. I think PSG will probably be fine. I think at the moment the biggest concern for them is whether David Luiz is fit or not. However, in my opinion, I think that Marquinhos starting over Luiz in central defence alongside Thiago Silva actually makes PSG's defence stronger. So I don't think that that's too much of a problem. The only concern for PSG now seems to be whether or not Kevin Trapp will start in goal, or whether it'll be Salvatore Sirigu. Trapp's back in training after an injury during the international break. But for Madrid, there's so many missing players there at the moment. There's still question marks over some others as well. Gareth Bale just ruled out of the game today. So unfortunately, a bit of the pre-match shine has been taken away from this game already, and you just kind of hope that Real Madrid aren't suffering from the same situation that PSG found themselves in last season when they faced Barcelona in the quarterfinals, where they were so depleted by suspensions and injuries, that it wasn't really a fair matchup. I think that Real Madrid have enough strength in depth to make this a competitive game still. But when you look at some of the names that are going to be missing for Real, it's obviously a very difficult situation for Rafael Benitez's men, especially away from home.
Do you think the lack of higher level competition in Ligue 1 could hurt PSG at this point? Because we've seen PSG really be dominant in Ligue 1 play, and now we've seen them play well in the Champions League. But can the lack of really top flight competition, like you always have, Real Madrid always has a Barcelona to play against, Juventus always has a Roma to play against, Dortmund and Bayern Munich. We always see these big time matchups. PSG really doesn't have that huge team that can really push them to the brink. At least it doesn't look like it this year in Ligue 1. So can the lack of competition in their domestic league hurt them at this point?
I don't think I necessarily agree with that. I think that when you look in Ligue 1, I mean, okay, the likes of Monaco and Lyon aren't challenging PSG at the top of the table right now, and they're not staying within, in touch sort of as far as the title race is concerned. But they are teams with plenty of quality players still, and when PSG come up against them, I know that they beat Monaco 3-0 away earlier in the season. These teams will still give PSG a good game. I think, unfortunately, with Monaco, what we're going to see, what we're seeing now, and what we're going to be seeing for the next couple of seasons at least, is that this is a team that's constantly turning over players. It's going to be bringing in young talent, adding value to them, selling them on in a season or two's time, and unfortunately that's not really going to allow them to challenge PSG as strongly as they might have been able to, especially with some of the transfers that we saw from them in their first couple of seasons since they've been back in Ligue 1. I think that there is still enough quality in Ligue 1 to challenge PSG. However, the biggest challenge that PSG face is actually being able to mentally deal with everything that gets put in front of them domestically. We've quite often seen PSG in the past turn their noses up at some of their domestic opponents, are quite obviously saving themselves for their Champions League encounters. And I think that's what PSG have been building up to so far this season. We haven't really seen them, even hit, say, fourth gear, let alone fifth. And it's, we're a couple of months into the season now. Coming up into this Real Madrid game, I think they've really been saving themselves for that, so it wouldn't surprise me to see, perhaps their best performance of the season so far, similar to the way that we saw their best performance of last season come when Barcelona came to visit in the Champions League group stage as well. It wouldn't surprise me if they pull out, a similar level of showing against Real this week. However, I think that PSG have managed themselves a lot better so far this season, certainly in terms of the condition of the players. The squad has been rotated a lot better by Laurent Blanc, so there's less fatigue. Some players, notably Marco Verratti, managing themselves a bit better on the pitch. Fewer yellow cards, so suspensions aren't as commonplace for PSG so far this season. So I think everything's going very well for them at the moment, but I think they really need to put in their first really impressive display of the season this week.
Right. And I would also like to add that, in terms of keeping players fresh, you have an Edison Cavani who did not play in the World Cup qualifiers and Common Bowl over the past week because of suspension. So, I guess the silver lining to this dark cloud is the fact that he remains fresh to play for PSG into this match. So I think that's a big help for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the form that Cavani's in at the moment, joint top scorer for PSG in Ligue 1 at the moment with 6 goals along with Ibrahimovic, but he's got a couple in the Champions League as well. I think Cavani is an important player for PSG. He's shown that since he's arrived. Yeah, he's had a few problems, a few teething issues, settling into life in Paris, adjusting to, sort of playing second fiddle to Zlatan. But he is still a very important player to this PSG side. And, I think we'll see him rise to the occasion against Real Madrid, as we'll see many players in the PSG rise to the occasion.
All right. So I'm going to send you over to Mike. I know Mike has a few questions for you. So, Mike, take it away.
Hi, Jonathan. Thanks for being on the show again. It's great to talk to you.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Sticking with the PSG game for a minute versus Real Madrid, how important is it for PSG to win this group and avoid one of the big teams in the quarterfinal matchups?
I think it is quite important for them. I certainly think, from a mental point of view, it's about time that they win a group where they've been placed in it with, another very big team. They got quite fortunate in the first two seasons back in the Champions League in that they got a relatively straightforward group. Last season, obviously, it was a lot more difficult with Barcelona, and they ended up coming second. I think they'll be looking at this group this season, considering that the moves that they've made over the summer, considering the situation that Real Madrid find themselves in at the moment. I think that they'll be fancying themselves for top spot, but they know that they need to beat Real at home, certainly, need to avoid defeat away if they're to avoid a repeat scenario of last season when they beat Barcelona at home and then lost to them away, of course. But they'd also dropped points very early on in the campaign against Ajax. I think we'll see PSG avoid dropping silly points like they did against Ajax this season. However, that means that their group stage campaign is going to hinge on the two games against Real Madrid, so I think that they'll have told themselves that they absolutely have to win the home game against Real, and then they have to avoid defeat at all costs away from home. And if they can do that, then I think that they'll feel that the job has been done, and they'll be able to see it out and top the group.
And do you see them getting a result on Wednesday given their recent form?
Yeah, I do. I think that they will get a good result on Wednesday. I can see them beating this Real Madrid side. As I said earlier, I think it's a shame that there's so many injuries, for Real coming into this game, because I think it would have been a better indicator for PSG as to where they are at the moment if Real had been at full strength. But you can only beat what's put in front of you, and I think that PSG do have the quality to see off Real on Wednesday. But I think that it was always going to be the more difficult fixture, and I think that they'll find it more challenging at Santiago Bernabeu in a fortnight's time.
Okay, and switching over to league play, excuse me, for a minute. We've reached almost the 1/3 mark of the Ligue season, as hard as that is to believe. And PSG is undefeated through the first 10 games of the campaign. I know there's still a long way to go, but can PSG remain unbeaten for the whole season?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the PSG have had it in them now for a couple of seasons to remain unbeaten, but it goes back to what I was mentioning earlier, where they sometimes turn their nose up at the teams that they're playing domestically. If they can avoid complacency, which they've done a good job of doing so far. Granted, some of the performances haven't been brilliant. I think that they've dealt well with some quite difficult international breaks, especially recently when you consider how many of the South Americans had so far to travel and so few days to recover before the game against Bastia. And I do think, looking at the state of Ligue 1 at the moment, how some of the other teams are doing, particularly the likes of Lyon and Monaco, I do think that there is a good chance that PSG could go for the full season unbeaten. However, there are a couple of very surprising teams doing well so far in Ligue 1. Okay, I say surprising. There's always been a good amount of potential to teams like Nice, so for me it's not a surprise to see them rising so high up the table at the moment. Saint-Etienne are always going to be there and thereabouts, sort of in the top 4 or 5 at the moment. They're placed 4th. PSG play them at home on Sunday, so a team like Saint-Etienne at the moment, perhaps the biggest threat to PSG if they want to go through a full domestic season unbeaten.
Okay, and you mentioned Monaco, and I know that you've written about one player who is frustrated at Monaco is João Moutinho, one of the survivors of the 2013-14 season when they finished second in the league. And prior to this weekend's game versus Lyon, he said he feels he could be the next one to leave. Do you see him leaving during the winter transfer?
I'm not sure I see him leaving in January, but I can definitely see him leaving next summer. It's unfortunate, Moutinho is a fantastically talented player. We saw him do some excellent things in the past with the Portugal national team, Porto, and even Sporting Lisbon. But it's just never really worked for him at Monaco. We've seen glimpses of him at his best there, but it's been few and far between, really. Leonardo Jardim arriving has been a good thing for him. He's made him a more important member of the team. Moutinho really got lost under Claudio Ranieri, but it's still not been the same Moutinho that we've seen in the past. I think he's right in a way to feel frustrated when you look at the sheer volume of players that have left Monaco over the last couple of summers. I think the first summer of business was understandable, but I do think that even though some of the money that was offered to the club this summer was very difficult to turn down. There are certain players that I think Monaco perhaps shouldn't have sold. However, nobody was to predict really that Manchester United would come in, and make such a massive bid for Anthony Martial, and that really was impossible for Monaco to turn down. I think that had they been able to keep him going into this first half of the season, I think that they would have really been a different side, and they certainly would have won some more games than they've already won at the moment. But there's still a lot of quality in that Monaco team, whether Moutinho stays or goes, and I think that if he does leave, because he is now by far and away the club's biggest earner, I think that Monaco will reinvest that money quite sensibly.
Okay, and switching to another team that's in a bad run of form, and they continued it at the weekend with their 1-1 draw against Lorient. Marseille has now extended their winless run to 5 games. Do you feel it is just a bad run of form, or is there something else going on here?
There's so many problems at Marseille, it's difficult really to know where to start with them. It is a bad run of form. This team is definitely capable of better. They have some very good players, players who are in form at the moment, the likes of Michy Batshuayi, now joint top scorer in Ligue 1 with Hatem Ben Arfa of Nice, and Lassana Diarra as well, who was recently voted September Player of the Month. Two very, very talented players, but the problem with Marseille at the moment is the atmosphere is completely wrong off the pitch. Whether it's problems in the boardroom or problems in the stands. At the moment, Marseille just seems like a poisoned chalice. And once Marcelo Bielsa departed, some of the fans' goodwill disappeared. And we saw how they sort of reacted to the recent turn of events when Mathieu Valbuena returned to Stade Velodrome with Lyon a few weeks ago. Those horrible scenes, which now have resulted in some stadium punishments for Marseille. And at the moment, the atmosphere is just very, very negative. Michel has come in. He picked up a couple of good results, a couple of impressive wins where Marseille scored a number of goals each game and sort of proved that they do have that ability to really open teams up in Ligue 1, but they've been dropping points and getting beaten by teams that you really don't expect them to lose to. The likes of Slovan Liberec in the Europa League, Angers as well. Angers doing fantastically well at the top of the table, but you wouldn't expect Marseille to drop points to them at home, let alone get beaten by them. So at the moment, to an extent, it's a question of Marseille, like Monaco, having their new players gel and form a bit of team chemistry and get used to the new coach. But at the same time, even so, we saw that with Marcelo Bielsa last season, and it ended up not being enough. Marseille seem to always find a way to self-destruct. And at the moment, it just seems like it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for somebody to come in at Stade Velodrome and really turn this team around and get them back to the top half of the table and challenging for the league title again.
Well, you did mention that it's not all doom and gloom. The one revolution has been Diarra, and you mentioned the Ligue Player of the Month for September. And he also earned a recall to the French national team, I believe, for the first time in 5 years. Can you tell us a little bit more about his season so far, and do you see him with France next summer?
It's been really interesting to see how he's fit in at the moment at Marseille. I have to be honest, I didn't expect too much from him at the beginning of the season. Arrived after a lengthy contract dispute with Lokomotiv Moscow in Russia, so I think many people were expecting to see a player who was really off the pace, but he's taken many people by surprise. He's proven to be really focused, wanting to get down and stuck in on the pitch, got himself back to a good level of fitness very quickly. And has shown himself to be, one of the more consistent performers in this Marseille team at the moment. Thoroughly deserved his recall to the France squad. I didn't think that was something that was going to happen. He's been quite a troublesome character in the past. However, it does seem like he's turned a corner. Barcelona. He's matured a little bit more. Now that he's hit 30, he sort of sees himself as this kind of elder statesman figure, both for Marseille but also at international level, and performed well enough in the heavy friendly victory over Armenia recently to merit a recall. So assuming that Diarra keeps his level of performance relatively consistent at the moment, I don't see why Didier Deschamps won't be recalling him in the future. And obviously if he continues in a similar vein of form for the rest of the season, then I definitely think that we could see Diarra going to the Euros next summer.
Wow, that'd be interesting. Switching back over to PSG for just a second. At the weekend, Laurent Blanc managed his 200th game in Ligue 1, and while he has still not captured the European Championship, and he has now coached the fourth longest in Ligue 1 history and has one of the highest winning percentages of all time, ahead of both Ross and I think is it pronounced Batu? Batu. Where do you rank him in terms of the all-time best coaches in Ligue 1?
It's a difficult question off the top of my head. I certainly think in terms of the modern coaches, I think when you look at the list of trophies that he's won, certainly domestically, he's right up there with some of the best. I think that he's done a very, very good job at PSG, did a very good job at Bordeaux as well, and I think that sometimes he doesn't get the credit he deserves. I think that many people look at Blanc and look at the team that PSG have, the squad that they've put in front of him, and many people just assume that it's easy to send this team out to win games every week. I mean, yes, when PSG go out on the pitch and they want to win a game, it is very easy for them to win a game, especially domestically, and they can also beat most comers in Europe as well. However, it's very difficult for the coach to be able to motivate them to take all of these games seriously and to stay hungry and to want success on every front, and Blanc has done very well at that. The players took a while to get used to him. He wasn't the easiest character to warm to, but now that they understand his methods a lot better, I think that they can see that he wants success as much as they do, and at the moment it's a well-working relationship. However, the problem for Blanc is that the expectations of PSG are always going to be very, very high. He knows now that if he doesn't lead PSG past the quarterfinals this season, which he's done for the past two campaigns, then he's probably going to be looking for a job next summer, as unfair as that is on him because of the fantastic domestic success that he's enjoyed since he arrived.
So I guess getting that first place in the group is even more important for him this season then.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's for PSG mentally, to get that reassurance to know that if they finish top, that they should, in theory, be getting, one of the sort of second tier sides that comes through in second place. That will do wonders for their confidence. But as we've seen in the Champions League, sometimes it doesn't go to plan for some of the big teams. They end up finishing second. So it's just as possible at this moment in time, because we don't know the final positions of the group, that PSG do go through top ahead of Real Madrid. Yet there's a couple of very strong teams that finish second in their group, and then PSG end up with another difficult draw like they had last season. So sometimes it's not always absolutely crucial to go through in top spot. However, in theory, it is something that helps. So PSG have to be aiming for that, assuming that all of the strongest teams in the Champions League this season are going to top their group.
Right. I want to thank you again for all the time you've given me tonight, but I have to ask you about one more story that you wrote about, and you described it as bizarre. I'm sure you know the story I'm talking about, involving former French international Djibril Cisse and current Lyon playmaker and Le Bleu star Mathieu Valbuena. You wrote that Cisse was one of the four men arrested as part of an investigation into an alleged attempt to blackmail Valbuena with a sex tape featuring him and his girlfriend for a fee of between 50 and 100,000 euros. What can you tell us about this?
Like I said in the piece, it's just very, very bizarre. Came completely out of left field. I don't think many people expected it last week, certainly not on a Tuesday morning. And it's something that was over relatively quickly. Cisse was out by the end of the day, and has done his best to distance himself from those rumours. Valbuena even has come out on French TV in the last day or so, and admitted that he was sad to see that Cisse was even brought in for questioning, as all he mentioned regarding Cisse in the report was the fact that he was tipped off by him that the video had fallen into the wrong hands, and he might be the subject of something quite underhand sometime soon, which turned out to be the case. However, Cisse was embroiled as part of this. Was arrested, taken into custody, questioned for 12 hours, and then released. Tried to clear his name as quickly as he possibly could, and now has straightened things out on French television. Explained exactly what the confusion was at first. And has now also revealed that he's fully retired from football, so he's now concentrating on his television commitments, but trying to put this this controversial episode behind him. But it was a huge scandal when it first emerged. But eventually, over the course of the day, it became more and more clear that Cisse's role in it was not that of a main protagonist.
Right, but there really is a tape then.
It seems so, yes.
Wow. Okay, well, thanks a lot again, Jonathan, for taking my questions. It was a real pleasure talking to you again, and I'm going to give you back to Joe now.
Thanks, Mike.
Great, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mike. Jonathan, I just have a couple more quick questions. I'm going to stick with Ligue 1 quickly. And just looking at the top of the table, quarter way through the season, we see two very unfamiliar names towards the top of the table in Angers and Caen. Can either of these two teams hold on to their European positions in the table, and which team is best suited to do that?
I have to be honest, I don't think that either Angers or Caen will hold on to these positions in the top three at the moment. However, with Ligue 1, with how unpredictable it can be below PSG, you can never completely say that teams like Angers and Caen won't finish in the Champions League positions, because you've seen stuff like that happen before. I think that they'll eventually run out of steam. I think that if one of the teams was suited better for qualifying for European football, I think it would be Caen. They've got some very good players. The acquisition of Andy Delort over the summer, after a failed spell in England, has proved to be quite an inspired move at the moment. He's a good source of goals for them, whether he's scoring them or creating them. Angers, they're a very balanced side. There's no real standout talent there. They're just very solid and sort of playing in the mould of their coach. And I think that they've done a very, very good job so far. I don't think that they're going to have any relegation struggles, and I don't think Caen will either, but I can definitely see both of these teams slipping down towards mid-table.
Okay, yeah, and I would say that Caen might be better suited just based on the fact that this is their second year in the league, so little experience with the opponents that they face week in and week out, where Angers is a newly promoted side. But Angers playing well defensively. They've only given up 6 goals in 10 matches. So that certainly speaks to their defensive capabilities, and it's going to be interesting to watch them heading forward. Now, my last question before I let you go, and this is a discussion that Mike and I were having in our opening thoughts topic, and it is in regards to MLS, and I don't know how much MLS coverage you get over in Paris. We were talking about which player or who has had the biggest impact in MLS. I was arguing on the side of David Beckham. Mike was arguing on the side of Sebastian Giovinco. So based on your familiarity, and again, I'm not sure if you have a lot of familiarity or not, is there somebody that you would either of those two players come on your radar, or would there be somebody else that you might point the finger to?
I think in terms of how good and advert they've been for MLS, I think you've got the best of both worlds. You've got one player who does it on the pitch week in, week out, in Giovinco, who's just been an absolute revelation since arriving in Toronto. But then you have somebody like David Beckham, who did do it on the pitch. I wouldn't say he did it to the exact extent that we're seeing from Giovinco, or maybe even a Robbie Keane as well. But he was such a media darling. I think that if you could combine the two, somebody who's as media savvy as Beckham, but somebody who is such a consistent and thrilling performer as Giovinco on the pitch, then I think that you really would have the winning combination. But I think they're two good candidates for two completely different reasons.
Sure. And again, I want to thank you again for joining us tonight. Are you back on Wednesday nights on BeIN Sport? I haven't seen lately, but Are you back on your featured?
I am. I normally have the 5-minute segment. However, it's on a Thursday night now, I think.
That's why I've been missing it. So, because I always look forward to it during the week. So, good. So good to know that you'll be on Thursday nights on the Express Extra on BeIN Sport, and we'll keep an eye out for you. And again, thank you for joining us. We always enjoy having you on, and thanks for giving us so much time again tonight.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Cheers.
Thanks again, Jonathan.
And that was Jonathan Johnson from BeIN Sport. Always enjoy having him on. He's a wonderful guest to have on the show, and always very, very knowledgeable about French football moving forward. So, Mike, your thoughts on what he had to say about our question for the night?
I think that he answered it almost exactly the way that me and you're discussing it. It's two different reasons why they both are both number one on impact in terms of MLS.
Exactly.
On MLS.
No, I agree. Now he entered.
His, like you said, was more off the field, and I have agreed with you. It's pretty hard for anybody to match David Beckham's marketing power, but in terms of on the field and what that can bring to the MLS, it said that, and he kind of said that was his answer.
I also like his answer about combining the two players. You know, if you could make a child of David Beckham and Sebastian Giovinco in his form right now, boy, and you sprinkled one or two of them throughout the league. I mean, this would be an incredible league to watch.
I'd hate to mess with Seba's free kick and mess in Beckham's though.
But at the same time, think of the marketing ability when they walk off the pitch.
Yeah, and he'd be a little taller, I guess, too.
Yeah, he would. So, all right, let's head over to let's start and kick off our league coverage here tonight. We'll rip through the leagues quickly as we normally do. Looking at our match of the week from the previous week, last week Rob and I featured a few matches in each league. First off, we'll start off in La Liga, where our featured match was Villarreal Celta Vigo, and at the time, the two teams were the two league leaders in La Liga, going through 7 matches. Rob had predicted a Celta Vigo 2-1 victory in this one, and Rob got it exactly right. We had in the first half goal from Orellana in the 41st minute. Suarez ties it in the 67th for Villarreal, and then Nolito adds a goal in the 90th minute to get the late winner for Celta Vigo. Looking at the statistical information in this match, we had Celta with a 61% ball possession. Shots on goal were 3-2 in favor of Villarreal, and a red card in this one. Just going back to my information, Bailey in the 47th minute picked up his second yellow and was sent off. So that is our match of the week in La Liga. Just going into the rest of our information in La Liga, we currently have Real Madrid leading the way, tied with Celta Vigo and Barcelona, all three at the top of the table on 18 points. In the relegation zone at the moment, Levante, Las Palmas, and Granada. Our top scorers in La Liga at the moment, Neymar leading the way at Barcelona with 8 goals, followed by Karim Benzema, Diego Nolito on Celta Vigo, and Cristiano Ronaldo with 6 goals each. So we do have a match of the week coming up a little later on in the show, and we will definitely preview that. And again, it's a featured match of top 2 teams in La Liga. So I'm going to take it over, Mike. I'm going to keep the keys to the car here for a minute and go over to Ligue 1. In our Ligue 1 match of the week, we had Monaco-Lyon in this one, I believe, and I personally predicted a 1-1 result in this match, and I got it absolutely right. Miracles never cease. Pasalic in the 39th minute for Monaco to open the scoring, and Rafael from Ghezal in the 84th minute to draw level for Lyon in this particular match. Shots on goal in this one were 4-6. I'm sorry, Lyon leading the way, 6 shots on goal compared to 4 for Monaco. Ball possession also in favor of Lyon in this one. So perfect match, 1-1 as well. So going into the table, again, we talked about it with Jonathan earlier. Paris Saint-Germain currently unbeaten in the domestic league on 26 points, followed by upstarts Angers and Caen on 21, and then Saint-Etienne in 4th on 19 points. Notable point totals here, Lyon in 6th on 16 points, Monaco in 10th on 14, Lille Defensively, the best team in the league, having only conceded 5 goals, but only having scored 5 as well. They're in 13th place at 11, and our 3 relegation zone teams right now are Gazalec Ajaccio on 3 points, Troyes on 4, and Montpellier on 5. Montpellier, by the way, playing a pretty nice match this week. I believe it was, where is it here, against Bordeaux. They finished in a 0-0 draw. I got to see some of that one. So our goal scorers in Ligue 1 at the moment, Bastois at Marseille, and again, Mike, you had mentioned this. Bastois at Marseille and Ben Arfa at Nice, both on 7 goals each. Edison Cavani and Zlatan Ibrahimovic on 6 goals each. And then Braithwaite and Mukanjo at Lorient on 5 goals each, rounding out our top 6. So that is our Ligue 1 coverage. Mike, you get to do the Bundesliga this week.
All right, are we starting with the Bundesliga or the EPL? EPL first, right?
Yeah, go for it. EPL, I'm sorry.
Okay, so it's our game of the week was Tottenham versus Liverpool. The simulator predicted 1-1. The final score was actually 0-0, so result right, score wrong. Tottenham with 13 shots on goal, or 13 shots at goal, 4 on goal. Liverpool 12 at goal and 3 on goal. 1 yellow card for Tottenham to Lamela, and 2 for Liverpool, Milner and Lucas. Possession pretty much equal, 49-51 in favor of Liverpool. And I only seen a bit of the second half, a rather dull affair for me. Did you see the whole game, Joe?
I didn't get a chance to see all of it. I saw a couple of minutes of it.
Right, so a rather dull affair, but I would have predicted a draw, just not quite as dull as it was. I'll just mention that Manchester City beat Bournemouth 5-1. Yeah. The table, Manchester City in first on 21 points. Arsenal in second on 19, tied with Manchester United. In fourth on 17 points is West Ham, and still in fifth in Europe on 16 points is Leicester. At the bottom of the table, in 16th is Norwich after a horrendous defeat this weekend on 9 points. The aforementioned Bournemouth in 17th on 8. Newcastle, after their big win with Norwich, has moved up to 18th. They're on 6 points. Aston Villa on 4 points in 19th, and rounding out the bottom of the table, Sunderland still only on 3 points after 9 games. Leading scorer in the Premier League is James Vardy from Leicester City with 9. Aguero, Sanchez, and Wijnaldum, who I believe had 3 this weekend for Newcastle, are all on 6. Igalo, Perez, Payet, Lukaku, Pele, and Wilson are all on 5 goals and tied for 5th place. The Bundesliga game was Schalke and Hertha Berlin for our match of the week. We predicted 2-0, I believe, was the prediction.
That is correct.
And the final score was actually 2-1. So again, result right, score wrong. It was Maximilian Meyer and Howdies for Schalke and Solomon Kalou for Hertha Berlin. Shots on goal in this one was Schalke 19 shots, 9 on target. Hertha Berlin 9 shots on goal, 5 on target. There was a few yellow cards in this one, 3 to each team. Howdies, Johan Geis, and Franco De Santo, former Arsenal player, I believe, for Schalke. Mm-hmm. And for Hertha Berlin, it was Langkamp, Derrida, and not sure about that one, Haraguchi, and actually one more there for Halliger, for Hertha Berlin. Final score 2-1. Possession in this one was 56-44 in favor of Schalke. And a quick look at the German Bundesliga table sees, of course, Bayern Munich still at first with a 7-point lead now after only 9 results. Borussia Dortmund in second on 20 points. Schalke, the winners of our game of the week, are in third on 19 points. Wolfsburg is in fourth on 15. And the final European spots are Hertha Berlin and Cologne, both tied on 14. Leverkusen just on the outside looking in, also on 14, but behind in goal difference. And the bottom of the table in the Bundesliga sees Werder Bremen in 16th with 7 points. Hoffenheim in 17th with 6 points, and FC Augsburg rounding out the bottom of the table in 18th and last place with 5 points. Goal scorers in the German Bundesliga, of course, Robert Lewandowski is in first for Bayern Munich with 12 goals already after only 9 games. Aubameyang for Dortmund on 10, and then it's Thomas Müller in third, and we have 3 players tied for fourth, Bas Dost, Anthony Modeste, and Yunus Mali, all on 6 goals for in the Bundesliga, and I guess that's the Bundesliga for this week, Joe.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention, I did get a chance to watch a little bit of the Hanover-Cologne match this week, which, Cologne running towards the top of the table, but losing really hard luck on an Andresen goal in the 38th minute in that one, which was an absolute 100% clear handball missed by the referees, and it ended up being the game winner. So a little unfortunate for the Bundesliga side there. So.
And you're watching that on Fox?
I'm watching that on Fox, yeah.
And how are you enjoying that coverage?
Very, very good, and watching the Bundesliga this year, I wish I had watched more of it last year, because it has been, I honestly, I want to say it is very similar to me to the way the English Premier League plays. The only difference, and a lot of people have mentioned this when we've talked about it, is really the language barrier. Is where people don't get the German league. It's because of the language barrier. It is fantastic football to watch. It's must see. And there are parts of me that are actually starting to like it a little bit better than the Spanish league. It seems like it's all the teams.
Don't let Rob hear you say that.
I know, but all the teams are very, very competitive. It's a great watch. So definitely open it up and take a look through, because it's great. So I'm going to take us over to Italy now, where in Italy our match of the week was the Derby d'Italia. And we had predicted, actually not we, because I'll take the fall for all of this. I predicted a 2-1 Juventus victory in this one, and hey, for everything I got right in France, I got it wrong this week in Italy. This match finished at a 0-0 draw at the Giuseppe Meazza. Really, obviously, no goals to talk about in this one. We had 5 yellow cards on the Juventus side: Marchisio, Khedira, Zaza, Evra, and Chiellini. And we had 3 on the Inter side with Felipe Melo, Brozovic, and Miranda in stoppage time in the second half. So statistic information on this one is ball possession in favor of Juventus, 52-48. Shots on goal for this one were also in favor of Juventus at 4-2. To say Juventus dominated this match is really a wicked overstatement. I think the result was fitting. I think a better result would have been 1-1. A couple of these teams hit the post during play here as well, so it would have been nice to see, especially Sami Khedira hit the post late, which would have given the potential winner to Juventus. So a fantastic.
I mentioned to you that I watched the game and told you that it was a good cure for insomnia, and of course you came back with some Champions League comment.
Yes, that's right. That I said that. I honestly I didn't think it was an insomnia game. I thought it was pretty good action personally. I didn't think it was lacking. So one of the other matches that I do want to mention quickly is the Napoli-Fiorentina match. It wasn't our match of the week, but Italy had what seemed to be all the big matches this week. Lorenzo Insigne in the 46th minute to take the lead for Napoli. Kalinic in the 73rd minute, only to be outdone 2 minutes later by Gonzalo Higuain with a game winner. And a lot of people never expect Gonzalo Higuain to score a game winner in anything. But Napoli right now, Mike, is really running, they're running pretty good. Winners of 4 of their last 5 matches. Their only blemish is a draw against Carpi a few weeks ago. These guys are sitting 3 points out of first place right now. Let's hit the tables quickly. We've got Fiorentina leading the way on 18 points. And then you have Roma and Inter both even on 17 points each. Amazing to see Inter's only scored 8 goals so far this season, but they are playing very, very well. Napoli in fourth place, tied with Sassuolo and Lazio on 15 points each. Juventus currently sitting in 14th on 9 points, and in the relegation zone we have Bologna, Carpi, and Verona all holding spots. Empoli 2 points outside of that, out of that range with Frosinone as well. So. A good week in the Serie A. Looks like Juventus is trying to start making a move. We'll see how they do with back-to-back matches against Mönchengladbach in the Champions League coming up. But I think they can certainly, get back into this match if these teams start beating each other up at the top of the table. So, Mike, I'm going to go back to you now because we're going to talk about MLS, and I think we're going to spend a few minutes here, right?
Okay, well, I'll just go through these games quickly, but certainly if the big games were in Italy last week, they're all in the MLS this Sunday. Our game of the week was a midweek encounter, FC Dallas versus Vancouver Whitecaps. This was a battle for home field and perhaps the supporter shield this season. FC Dallas, the winners, 2-0. We predicted 2-1, so again, right result, wrong score. Diaz and Barrios for FC Dallas, and no goals for Vancouver, like we said. There was 2 yellow cards in this one. Watson and Akindelli, for Dallas, and 2 more for the Whitecaps, Jordan Harvey and Kaw for the Whitecaps. Shots on goal in this one were 14 at target for Dallas with just 6 on the target, 10 at net for Vancouver, 1 on target only throughout the whole game, just 1 shot at target. Time of possession in this one pretty much equal, 51% to 49 in favor of Vancouver. I think the result was about right, but I just don't think Vancouver looked very good in this one, and I'm afraid they might be running out of gas here at the wrong point in the season. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you quite a bit there. Losers of 3 of their last 5 matches. This is a team that was leading the way for a little while, and then they've just been kind of overtaken here. And if they're not too careful, just looking at the standings quickly, let's see, that's a 6-goal differential there. I don't think they can be overtaken by San Jose if they lose their last match and San Jose wins. It would have to be, by a pretty big goal swing. But they do have to, they'd have to be pretty careful here not to get eliminated from the playoffs, which is, I guess, a potential.
Really?
Let's see, they're a +6. And San Jose is a +3 on goals. I don't know what their head-to-head is.
Yeah, but it'd be more Portland then, because Portland's the one that's 7 goals different.
Yeah, well, no, Portland's a -1 right now.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But if you're saying San Jose wins, they'll be on 50. If Vancouver loses, they'll be on 50. And if Portland loses, they'd be on 52.
Yeah, well...
and then it would be Portland would be the ones out because they're if it's goal difference, but I believe it's actually head-to-head record. Actually, I know it is. That's how I know if Toronto finishes ahead of DC United this weekend, that Toronto or ties DC United in points, will be the ones that would get second based on beating them twice this season.
San Jose has FC Dallas. Just looking quickly here. Portland's got Colorado. So that should, not this, and I know we've got our Colorado friends in the chat. I don't want to poo-poo them, but that should be a pretty easy match for the Timbers, especially the way they played against the LA Galaxy last night. My God.
Yeah, for me, the team in the West that's probably not going to make it, unfortunately, because they played really well down here. The stretch is San Jose.
Well, Sporting.
They've got a tough game against Dallas. That I don't see them getting any result from, and then it won't matter what Sporting Kansas City does because they're 1 point up on San Jose. Well, I'm saying San Jose is going to finish on 47 and is out.
Well, Sporting's got the LA Galaxy. And
yeah, so even if they lose, they're still on 48, though. I'm saying San Jose is going to lose against Dallas this weekend.
You're saying San Jose is going to lose to Dallas, and that's going to be it anyway.
Yeah, that's it. Doesn't matter. Then they're just battling. The other 6 are just for position, not spot, or not for a playoff position, just for spot in the table.
All right,
home field.
Because I was going to say the other 2 teams that are.
Why do you think San Jose can be? I know they can beat them, but do you think they're going to beat Dallas this weekend when Dallas is in a battle for the Supporter Shield?
Well, this is the thing that I wanted to talk about with you, and we talked about this a little bit last night in our chat. The scheduling from MLS is, in my opinion, here ridiculous. They really should change the schedule to make every team kick off at the same time this weekend. What you have is all the Eastern Conference teams playing each other at 5 o'clock, and you have the Western Conference teams playing each other at 7 o'clock. Now, why?
But that's basically the same difference because what happens in the East doesn't affect what happens in the West.
Not necessarily, because you have FC Dallas and the New York Red Bull both tied on points for the Supporters Shield.
Okay, for that reason. Okay, but,
So
yeah,
so now let's say,
but you're being pretty. I don't know what the word is, but to say that they could have figured out that it could come down to the Supporter Shield between the East and the West when they made this schedule up.
But leagues change time slots in games all the time. Not just MLS. Every league changes a time slot. It's not a big deal. You tell your patrons, sorry, folks, you got to show up at 5. This is a TV thing. Okay, that's all this is a TV thing. Because if you played them all at the same time, ESPN has the 5 o'clock game, Fox has the 7 o'clock game. They don't want them off at the same time because it's 2 competing networks, and that's...
No, I like it.
Yeah, I would rather see FC Dallas...
That gives us a chance to watch whatever we want from both ends. Like I said, other than the Supporter Shield, it's no different.
And then, you know what? Because the New York match this week, let me just go back and look. I think it is...
So what are you saying? If New York loses, I don't understand what that means anyways.
If New York loses, then FC Dallas has a chance to pick up points and win the Supporter Shield.
Right, so what is your concern, that if New York wins, they can't celebrate?
No. If New York wins, FC Dallas has 0 to play for. That game becomes absolutely meaningless, and then you put a B squad out there.
Okay, so
that would affect the playoff spot for...
And why? Because the Supporter Shield's decided on goal difference?
I think they follow the same tiebreakers that they do for league position.
So Dallas has lost to New York? Because if New York wins and Dallas wins, they're both on 60.
Right, and then I think, and then we'd have to look at head-to-head, and again, my understanding is the way it stands right now, the Red Bull are ahead. So...
All right.
Yeah, and Zach wants to talk about how god-awful the Seattle-Houston game was. So let's change it a little bit. Let's head over to...
Well, let me just check out Dallas and New York. Okay, they played back in May to a 0-0 draw in Dallas.
Yeah.
And that's the only time they played. So I believe the next time, the next breaker is going to be goal difference, and that's why New York would win it.
Yep, because right now Dallas is a +12, and New York is a +18.
Yeah, so they'd have to win huge. Yep. It wouldn't actually be done. They could win by 7 goals.
Right. Yeah, no matter what. They'd have to win by... Yeah, they'd have to win
by 7. It would actually be New York would have had to have at least got 1 goal, so it'd be 9. They'd have to win by 8.
Yep.
7 would be a tie.
Yeah. Chad says, you don't say, does anyone actually care about the Supporter Shield? Well, New York Red Bull fans do because it's the only trophy they win. Which is not really a dig because I guess...
But I don't think... I don't know. Do you really have that big of a problem with this other than that? I kind of like it.
I would like to see...
It's the first time they've done this, right? It's a great advertising ploy.
No, second time. They did it last year.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily against it, and I do get what you say, and I do agree that you get to see 2 teams. And I think this is a good time to mention, now that Chad's in the chat, that on Sunday night at 8 o'clock, so roughly about halftime of the second batch of matches, we're going to be doing a dual podcast with the boys over at Two Daft Yanks, kind of talking about the playoffs. We're going to finish it right at the end of that second batch of matches. We'll know our playoff settings and the teams and the matchups, so we're going to get together with Chad and Corey this Sunday and close out the MLS season. But
so the East is far more settled than the West. The West is very complicated at this point.
Correct. The only thing that can happen in the East is Orlando can catch New England.
That's not going to happen.
It's a victory, and I think there's a goal issue there as well, but I'm not 100% positive. But Orlando...
Yeah, there's a huge goal issue, and while you're talking, I'll quickly look up the results, because I believe head-to-head is the first tiebreaker for these things. Yeah,
and you have to take a look at that, because Orlando City is on an absolute tear. They're actually the hottest team right now in MLS. So they, to say that Orlando can draw level on points with New England, who's actually been losers of 3 of their last 4. Let's see.
Okay, they played in May to a 2-2 draw in Orlando. Mm-hmm. They played in New England, where New England beat them 3-0 in September. So, yes, no, the New England cannot. It's over for Orlando.
Yep, even though they're not.
Orlando's going to need to win by 9 goals difference of what New England gets to win it. Sorry, Orlando, you had a great season, but it's over.
So we're looking at seeding, and we're looking at teams. This is the other one that you'd want to look at is, and it's tough because you can't. You can tell. It would be DC United versus the Montreal Impact, provided Columbus and Toronto lose. You'd have to look at
Toronto's going to play Montreal and beat them.
Okay, so then
Which will take us to 52 points. Columbus and DC are going to draw. And Toronto's going to finish second.
Does Toronto own the head-to-head against DC?
They do.
Okay.
They do.
So there you go. So that's, and then that would be the first round bye. And that would be...
And that would be perfect. And it's not unlikely that Columbus and DC United draw. It's a very, it's a big game for both of them. If Columbus wins, they're going to finish second. If DC United wins, they're going to finish second. So they're both going to battle it out really hard. And I see a draw, and I see TSC sliding in the back door.
All right, so let's talk about one more thing then in the Eastern Conference, because it's really that's where it's at. Who wins the goal scoring title, Giovinco or Kai Kamara? Maybe I should. I would say maybe I should.
Columbus playing DC, right?
Yeah, and Toronto, Montreal.
And that's in Columbus. Toronto, Montreal.
Montreal playing.
I think it stays the same.
They're both on 22 each. 22.
Is it 22? I think that's right.
Yeah, I think they're on 22 goals each.
Yes, they both are on 22 goals each.
So who gets the title? They just share it at that point, right? I don't know if they do any kind of tiebreaker for that.
Yeah, no, I think joint golden boot, I guess.
Yeah.
And Giovinco leads the league in assists.
Yes. And he's having...
And shots.
He's having arguably one of the greatest seasons in MLS history.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be that big of an argument, though.
No, it's not, but it's close. I mean, Bradley Wright Phillips last year had a pretty...
Always you can come up with someone else, but I don't know. For me, it's him.
Yeah. No, definitely, let's... And I don't want to take away too much about what we're going to talk about with Chad and Corey on the weekend. But Giovinco MVP?
Oh, yeah, for me.
Kyle Larin, the Rookie of the Year?
For me, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with both of those. And New York wins the Supporter Shield.
And I think there's also a Newcomer of the Year award, so you would obviously think that's Giovinco, but maybe they give that one to somebody else.
Drogba?
Grella
wouldn't be... He's had a great season as well for New York.
I don't think Drogba's been here long enough to get that. Grella's had a great season.
Grella has had... Yeah, Grella... no, he's had a fantastic season.
Right.
He's had an amazing season. So, Jim's saying about Saturday, 4 Daft Yanks and a Canuck. So,
just a couple of quick statistics from around the MLS this season, Joe. The largest attendance for a single game was 64,358. That was Seattle and Portland.
Really?
It was.
I wonder.
I don't have a date for that, but they just played, so I'm not sure if that was that game or not.
Do you know if do you have a listing of like the top 3 or 4 games? Because I thought that.
No, I just have that one.
All right, because I was going to say that NYCFC match against Orlando was a pretty hefty crowd to open the season, if you remember.
I do.
I thought 64,000 sounded right about where it was.
All right, just hold on a second here. I'll see if I can get that up. A couple of the other stats from the season. Let me just get back to that, where I was here. The lowest attendance of the season was in Montreal versus the Whitecaps. There was just 10,035 at that one.
And that's not horrible.
Yeah, it's not great, though. The most home goals this year was DC United with 6 over Real Salt Lake. Most away goals this season was San Jose with 5 when they beat Kansas City at Sporting Kansas City 5-0. That tied for the largest goal difference of the season when also the Galaxy beat Portland 5-0. Longest winning streak this season. New England Revolution, 6 games. Longest current winning streak, you just mentioned that, Joe, is Orlando. The longest unbeaten streak this season was 9 games. Home winning streak was 6 games. The longest unbeaten streak, of 9 games was by New England. Home winning streak, Sporting Kansas City, 6 games. Longest current winless streak, this one I'm going to bring up for my friend Jim in the chat, is Colorado Rapids are on 6 games. And that's a few of the stats from Raul. And the average attendance this season, 21,500, and the total attendance so far 7 million, a little over 7 million.
It's an amazing stat. That's obviously, we had Ted Westervelt on a couple weeks ago, and we talk about, the pro rel guys bashing MLS, but they are growing in popularity. And it's hard to argue against numbers like that where they're averaging 21,000 per season, per match. It's hard to argue with that.
62,510, Joe.
For the Orlando match. So it was
right.
a couple thousand off.
Right, and the largest ever attendance, LA Galaxy, in their inaugural game at the Rose Bowl in 1996, 69,255.
Wow. Now, Zach is in the chat, and by everything that I know, Zach is a Seattle guy. So I don't know how many people fit into CenturyLink Field. I'm sorry, that's not CenturyLink. That is, it is CenturyLink.
Seattle, yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering how many people actually fit into the stadium. So if Zach's in the chat listening, if he could post in there what he thinks fits, I'd be surprised if Seattle couldn't break that one day. And especially if you tell the Seattle fans, hey, this is the record, this is the number you have to squeeze into that field. 67. So they won't even have an opportunity to
But will the attendance be 0 at the first playoff game?
That's a good question. That is a great question. No, they get in. Who do they have? Who does Seattle have? Oh, Real Salt Lake, and they're not exactly playing lights out either.
Yeah, but neither Seattle.
No,
you watching last night?
I did, and Zach wanted us to talk about the stinker that was Seattle-Houston, and it was quite the stinker. That was last night.
Yeah.
What was that? 0-0, I believe, or was it 1-1? I'm efforting it right now.
It was 1-1.
1-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Dynamo. They actually had to tie it up because Ricardo Clark in the 65th minute, and that's right. It was Obafemi Martins in the 85th minute to tie it. Yeah, I remember that. So, that was and against a team like the Houston Dynamo. Now, granted, Houston was still in a position to make the playoffs when they kicked that match off, but they, Giles Barnes really took a fall from grace. He's really played poorly over the past 4 to 6 weeks. Really, after they got back from Copa America is when he really started to go downhill. Copa America and the Gold Cup. So that's a case of a guy that ended up just playing too many matches, I think, in Giles Barnes. And
I don't know who said that before.
Well, they should cut down the MLS season down to about 30 games.
Well, they should at least. One thing I will say is the fact that 12 out of 20 teams makes the playoffs seems a little.
Yeah.
It really makes the season not worth a whole lot.
No, because think about it. The 12th place team. Let's, I don't have it up, but let's look at the Premier League. Who's in 12th place? Well, I think it's probably Chelsea.
I can understand that maybe a few of these spots have been placed there with expansion in mind. So as when they expand, if they don't add any more playoff teams, it might not be as bad. But I think a fair number right now would be 8.
8, sure. It was Chelsea, by the way, is 12th in the EPL. 12th right now in Spain is Sporting Gijón, and teams like Betis, Getafe, Eibar, those are all making the playoffs if this were MLS.
Yeah, no, there's just too many teams for me. But like I said, if it was set up with an eye towards future expansion and they're not going to expand the amount of teams in the playoffs, I can understand that. But it really does make it kind of silly to me. I can understand people that don't like the playoff system, and this being the reason why.
Yeah, we do.
It just allows teams that, there's always upsets, but those teams shouldn't be in a position to be able to upset some of these teams. They shouldn't be in it.
No, it's true. It's true. I do want to mention that not only do we have the big weekend, the big Sunday matchups, but we do have a midweek match between Sporting KC and the Colorado Rapids that is a makeup game. And that's going to be played, I believe that is Wednesday night.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why I was saying to you that I don't think Kansas City's in problem. They have another game in hand on San Jose. So if they win that game, it's definitely San Jose's only catching Seattle or
Or Portland.
Portland at that point, and I don't see it. Although I know we have a friend in the chat that's for Seattle, but if they didn't make it, I'd be happy.
Yeah, and now, but I didn't even factor that in. That Sporting KC, the Sporting KC LA Galaxy match. Then, if provided that KC wins the match against Colorado, which by all accounts should happen. Especially that match is being played in Kansas City. You're looking at LA Galaxy, Sporting KC duking it out for that that off week.
Yeah, there's almost something to every game.
Yeah, there is.
Even with the teams that are out of it.
So really, now that we go back and explore here, the Orlando City Philadelphia Union match actually is meaningless.
Is a nothing game.
Yep, and it's the only match in. That's being played that is a nothing game, because if you have a draw between the LA Galaxy and Sporting KC, and then Vancouver beats Houston Dynamo, then Vancouver gets that first bye.
Yeah, so they're everything except one game.
Every match is either dependent on another match or has implications built into themselves. So
I wonder how this will reflect in the TV numbers.
We'll have to see. Well, let's see.
Yeah.
I haven't seen much marketing for it.
I actually have, because they're really going on about this decision day, but that might just be on the podcast and stuff I'm listening to. I don't know about the TV, because I don't watch a lot of TV.
It could be so. All right, let's talk. Let's close out the MLS. And again, I want to remind everyone that 8:00 on Sunday night. I haven't worked out all the details with Chad, but I would imagine we're going to use this as the live server, and then Chad's going to post it as well. But we're going to do a close of MLS podcast with the boys over at Two Daft Yanks, which is always a blast to hang out with those guys. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to hit the European Championships real quick. I want to talk about the teams that have qualified out of their groups, and then the playoffs real quick, and then we'll head into our match of the week and close it out and see if I got the trivia question wrong. So we closed European qualifying this past week. And your qualifiers for the tournament in France next summer are out of Group A, Czech Republic, Iceland, and Turkey as the best third-place team. We talked about it, Mike. You weren't there last week, but we did talk about results falling the way they were supposed to. More specifically, Kazakhstan beating Latvia, and then Turkey winning their match, which would actually move Turkey into the automatic qualifier rather than have to go through the playoff system that is in for the third-place teams. Those things did happen. Turkey qualified as an automatic out of Group A. Group B, the number one team in the world currently, Belgium, qualified at top of the group with Wales finishing second. Spain. And
they are?
Yeah, Belgium right now, according to the FIFA rankings, is the number one team in the world.
Huh.
Sepp's probably got something to do with that.
No, because then it'd be Switzerland.
Well, you never know. Well, Belgium's probably paid him a lot of chocolate. That's all I can think of. And beer. Group C, Spain and Slovakia qualifying. Spain winning the group. Group D, Germany and Poland qualifying out of Group D. England, the only perfect team in qualifying in Group E, qualifying with Switzerland. This is something that we talked about last week with Simon Carr from the Soccer Gods. He felt that England really had a little bit more of a softer group, allowing them to qualify unblemished through qualification. Group F, Northern Ireland and Romania qualify for the tournament. In Group G, Austria and Russia. Group H, Italy and Croatia. And in Group I, Portugal and Albania. Your third-place teams. Now, this is the interesting part. These matches will be played in November. I'm just going to get down to my listing of the teams here. We have... let's see, Hungary out of Group F, the Ukraine out of Group C, Norway out of Group H, Denmark out of Group I, Sweden out of Group G, Republic of Ireland out of D, Bosnia and Herzegovina on Group B, and Slovenia in Group E, all qualifying for the third-place matches. And the matchups, which will be played over 2 legs, November 12th, 13th, and 14th, and the return matches 15th, 16th, and 17th. We have Ukraine, Slovenia, we have Denmark, Sweden, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Norway-Hungary as the matchups. Probably the tastiest of all the matchups is actually the Bosnia Republic of Ireland. Actually, no, I'm sorry. There's actually a better one than that. Give me one moment. I scanned through this the other day. It's actually Sweden-Denmark. Sweden and Denmark are separated by 5 positions in the world rankings. Sweden 16, Denmark 21. Hungary is also separated by Norway by 5 spots, 20 and 25 respectively. Sweden and Denmark, a lot of people are talking about the possibility of Zlatan not qualifying for another major tournament. If this is probably his last chance to really have an effect to get through. So we'll have to see how it plays out for him. Those matches on the 14th and 17th of November. Your top goal scorers in qualifying, Robert Lewandowski, 13 goals in qualifying, and Thomas Müller for 9 goals for Germany in qualifying as well. So we're going to kick off those playoff spots in November, and then we'll see the tournament as the groups get set up sometime in December. So, Mike, I think with that in mind, I know we have UEFA Champions League and Europa League coming up, but we'll talk about them in the match of the week. Let's head over to our matches of the week and give some predictions. First match of the week is mine to be had. It is in Ligue 1, and it is another match of the top 2 teams in the league. This time it is Celta Vigo and Real Madrid. This match is Friday at 2:30 in the afternoon. The match being played at Celta Vigo in this one. Just looking at my statistical information right now, Celta is on a run of 3 wins and 2 draws, as well as Real Madrid. Most recently, Real Madrid beating Levante 3-0 and drawing Atletico 1-1 the week before. Since Rob's not here to make the predictions, I will take over the Spanish stuff and get it all wrong and then blame him next week. So I will take Real Madrid on the road to beat Celta Vigo 2-0 in this one. Okay. Moving on into our Ligue 1 match, we have PSG and Saint-Etienne facing off. That is a Sunday 4 o'clock matchup. This is 2 teams, obviously PSG leading the way currently, and Saint-Etienne currently in 4th place in the league. Most recently, PSG on an excellent run of form. They haven't lost yet. They've won their last 5, beating Bastia, Marseille. They beat Shakhtar in the Champions League, also defeating Nantes and Guingamp in league play. Saint-Etienne, however, having a much tougher run of it. They did beat Ajaccio over the weekend 2-0, but having lost prior to that to Caen and Nice in league play, and also having lost to Lazio in the Europa League. So I'm going to take PSG to continue their winning ways on this one, and I'm going to take this one as a 2-1 victory for PSG. Obviously more focused on their match midweek than they will be on the one this weekend. So, Mike, I'm going to send it over to you for EPL and Bundesliga predictions. Or not. Oh, and Mike, are you still there?
Sorry, Joe, I was on mute. I'm not ready for Bundesliga, so if you can predict that one while I do.
Yep. Well, let me do you one better. Instead of me predicting Bundesliga, why don't I have the guy that covers the Bundesliga predict it? Welcome, Rob.
Hey, man. How's everything?
You made it.
What was your Ligue 1 score, Joe?
My Ligue 1 score was PSG 2-1 over Saint-Etienne.
Okay.
So, Rob, well, since we're doing our matches of the week, Bundesliga, Mönchengladbach, Schalke.
Yeah, absolutely. Borussia Mönchengladbach against Schalke at 12:30 on Sunday. Borussia Mönchengladbach currently 10th in the league with 12 points, and Schalke currently in 3rd with 19 points. I think this is going to be a big match for Borussia Mönchengladbach if they want to get back on track, especially in the domestic league and in Europe. So it should be tough, but I think Schalke has the favor here. They have one of the best teams I've seen in Germany so far, and I think I'm going to go with a 2-1 victory for Schalke.
A 2-1 victory for Schalke. So let's get that in the books here. Do you care to revise my Real Madrid 2-0 over Celta Vigo prediction?
Yes. Yes, I do.
All right, here's your
2-2. 2-2.
2-2. There's going to be a draw. All right, we're changing that. The official prediction of Low Limit Football for La Liga's match of the week is 2-2.
And here's why. Celta are it's a match between the unbeaten teams in La Liga, but I think Celta Vigo have the upper favor just because of how good they have been so far. And I think with the big match, especially what they've done against Barcelona where they beat them 4-1, at home, I think Real Madrid would be much more of a chance of them trying to beat them or even draw them at this point.
So point out to Debbie and chat, Joe, that you did not change that.
That is correct. I did not change that, Debbie, just so you know. I predicted a Real Madrid victory, and I've been overruled by our La Liga experts.
And I'm not being biased at all. Trust me.
Yeah, that's true. That's right, Mr. Blaugrana. Mike, all right. So Mike, we'll do. I mean, do you want to talk about EPL real quick?
Yeah, Manchester City 2-1 over Manchester United Sunday 10 a.m. No Sergio Aguero, it'd be 4.
You're giving me a prediction?
Yeah, 1-2.
Wow. Usually you wait till Friday. I know. What?
I ran it twice.
You ran it twice.
Twice.
Even better.
Yeah.
You pulled a Phil Hellmuth.
Well, wouldn't you have to wait just in case something happens in the Champions League?
Nah, no Aguero, no party.
It's a prediction.
Yeah.
Can't be exact. That's my prediction. No Aguero here, it'd be 4-1.
No Aguero, no party. No Silva, no party?
Oh, that's a real bad.
I know.
I think Company will be back, though.
Oh, there you go.
All
right, so let's go to Italy. And my match of the week in Italy is a pretty good one as well. We've got top 2 teams in the league, Fiorentina and Roma. We had Fiorentina this weekend losing to Napoli 2-1. Roma's in a decent run of form. They defeated Empoli 3-1, and they defeated Palermo on the road 4-2. They also suffered the loss to Bate in the Europa League prior to that, and they do have a Europa League match coming up this week. They are one of the top scoring teams in Italy at the moment, but I think Fiorentina is really ready to come back and make their statement in the league. I'm going to take Fiorentina victory in this one, 3-2. I'm going to take a high-scoring match in this one. Mike, match of the week in MLS.
Sunday, 5 p.m., along with all the rest of the games from the MLS East this weekend, will be at Sunday at 5 p.m. Our game is Columbus versus DC United. Could be a battle for second, third, or fourth. I'm going to predict 2-2.
2-2. That's and then
then Toronto beats Montreal, and Toronto
gets the
finishes second in the East
and gets the pass to the next round. So, all right, guys, let's go. And that match is like what you said is Sunday at 5 p.m.
Right. All the games in the East are at 5, and all the ones in the West are at 7.
Yep. So let's do some quick previews here of our Champions League, Europa League. This week we have Paris Saint-Germain, Real Madrid facing off as our match of the week in the Champions League. Again, we talked about PSG's run of form, both domestically and in group play. Both teams lead the way at 6 points in their group for Champions League. Real Madrid suffering some injuries, 1-1 draw to Atletico we talked about earlier, also a 0-0 draw to Malaga. I don't know, are all three of us, we always predict all three of us. So I'm going to go first, and I am going to say that this is going to be a 2-2 draw. So, Rob, would you like to venture a guess?
What did Jonathan Johnson say?
I think he said that PSG would win.
I'm not surprised now. You know what? I think the match is in Paris, right?
Is it the Parc des Princes?
3-2 PSG.
3-2 PSG. And Mike?
2-2.
2-2 as well. And the return leg in a couple of weeks. Europa League, we have, again, a matchup of two teams that are top of their group, and it is Midtjylland-Napoli, and this is going to be played at Midtjylland on Thursday at 3 o'clock. I am going to take Napoli in this one. It's hard to bet against Napoli these days, the way they are running. I'm going to take Napoli 3-0 in this one. I think they're just way too big for the other side. So, Rob, how about you?
Yeah, I think Napoli have the chance. They definitely have the advantage right there.
Mm-hmm.
3-1.
3-1. And Mike, would you like to venture?
No prediction and the Europa League.
All right. We'll go with that. And then the CONCACAF Champions League, guys. This is one I've been keeping on the plan for a while because I messed it up a month ago. But they will be playing this match this week, lo and behold. We have Santos Laguna Saprissa in Mexico Tuesday night at 8 p.m. With Santos, both teams are actually playing for that last spot in the CONCACAF knockout rounds. I'm going to take Santos Laguna in this one because I think we are going to see an all-Mexico / MLS knockout round. I think we're going to see 4 teams from each league move through. So I'm going to take Santos in this one 2-1. Rob, care to fancy a guess?
Santos 3-0.
Santos 3-0. Mike, care to fancy a guess?
I'm taking Saprissa 1-2.
Saprissa 1-2. Excellent. So we've got a little bit of head-to-head going on there. Again, it'll be a great week of football, especially with the European, the competitions coming up again. So, Mike, would you like to read the trivia question for Rob? We'll give it one more crack for him, and then I'll get it wrong, and then we'll close it out.
I think Rob should try to answer it without hearing it.
Fair enough. Rob, your answer?
Rob, your answer?
What's the question?
Okay. Which player has made the most Champions League appearances without having won the competition?
Thierry Henry?
That's your guess? I wrote it down, and I think I'm wrong because I think he won it with Barcelona, but I wrote down Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
And it is the big Richard himself, Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Really?
Oh, wow.
I got it right?
The big Richard. I'll leave that for you guys to figure it out.
I figured that part out as soon as you said it.
All right.
And it looks like Zach got it right in the chat as well. So
He did.
So good on him as well. So, I'm just looking.
If you want to go with a winner in almost every or a non-winner in almost every major competition, that should be your answer.
Zlatan, no matter what. So
you'll be almost right every time.
So, gentlemen,
you'll be right that he's never won anything as long as it's the longest too. Then you're always going to be right.
So, without any further ado, let's hit the closing music.
Oh, election in Canada tonight, in case nobody knew.
Is Donald Trump?
We're electing a new prime minister tonight, or maybe the same one.
Nice. Well, good luck.
Remember Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Joe?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, his son is now running for prime minister.
Oh. Well, you might be moving back here then.
No. None of our guys are even close to Donald Trump.
I know. No, I know. So, all right, boys, the closing music. So, for episode 94 of Low Limit Football, I want to offer special thanks again to Jonathan Johnson from BeIN Sport and ESPNFC for joining us. In the chat room, thanks to Debbie Santos, to Jim, to Zach, to Chad Smith. We also, I believe Omar was in there earlier. So thanks again to guys for joining us tonight. I hope I said Debbie. If I didn't, Debbie again. And for episode 94 of Low Limit Football, I'm Joe Usello.
I'm Roberto Rojas for 5 minutes.
And I'm Mike Orr saying, go Blue Jays!
Thanks again, everyone, and good night.
Thanks for listening.